The world had simply stopped breathing, replaced by a profound, impossible quiet. This wasn't just an absence of sound. It was a physical pressure, a weight on my chest. Every nerve in my body screamed, stretched taut by the sheer, unnatural void. My eyes burned with exhaustion, but an insistent dread kept them wide, unwilling to close. The voice echoed, a looping phantom. "Go to sleep," it calmly instructed over and over. Then the chilling follow-up. "Do not resist," its tone unwavering, absolute in my mind. It had been hours since the broadcast ended, possibly a full day, lost in the hush. The silence was not empty. It was a living thing, heavy, watching, waiting, suffocating. Every creak of the old house felt amplified, a deafening explosion in this profound void. My own ragged breathing sounded like a roar, my frantic heart a drum against my ribs. The broadcast's words, once a distant warning, now felt like a personal accusation, relentless. I hadn't resisted, I had merely stayed awake, an unforgivable act, perhaps a choice. The weight of my consciousness was a burden in a world designed for oblivion, for sleep. I was the flaw, the imperfection, in a perfectly orchestrated stillness, an intruder, and the silence was a constant reminder of my profound, terrifying error, my defiance. First attempts at contact confirmed my terrifying isolation. Phone lines were dead. The internet connection was gone. The world's lifeline severed, leaving me adrift. My cell phone, a useless brick, offered no signal, no comfort, just cold glass. I was utterly alone, adrift in an ocean of silence, screaming without sound. Looking out the window, the streets were empty, devoid of cars, pedestrians, life. No distant sirens, no hum of traffic, no faint murmur of human activity, nothing. The city, usually a symphony of distant noise, was a tomb, unnaturally hushed. A creeping unease morphed into true dread as I spotted immobile figures across the street. Through a neighbor's window, a family at a dinner table, perfectly frozen mid-meal. Their stillness was unnatural, too perfect for unconsciousness, too precise for sleep. No slumped posture, no disturbed plates, just an eerie, unyielding perfection, a painting. They looked like still life paintings, caught in an eternal moment, fixed in time. Their vacant eyes stared forward, seeing nothing, yet somehow unnerving in their fixity. The utter lack of movement was a profound horror, deepening the silence further. This was not merely an absence of sound, but an absence of life, a terrifying stillness, a desperate need for understanding, for answers, compelled me to venture out. The hallway was a tunnel of perfectly closed doors, each holding its own silent, unmoving secret. The elevator call button did nothing. Its light dead, another piece of the broken world. I took the stairs, each step a jarring echo in the profound, consuming quiet. Outside, the neighborhood unfolded like a diorama, meticulously, disturbingly arranged. People frozen in mundane poses, walking a dog, watering a garden mid-conversation, a child mid-play, a parent reaching, a couple embracing, all caught in an instant. Their eyes were open, vacant, staring into nothingness, yet seeing everything and nothing. The silence from these figures was the deepest horror. No breath, no rustle of clothing, just absolute, eerie stillness. A perfect, unyielding monument to an unknown event. A moment of false relief washed over me then. A twisted comfort in what seemed like an explanation. This must be a mass sedative, a global gas attack, a neurotoxic agent, a logical, albeit terrifying, event. Everyone rendered unconscious. A vast, horrifying sleep across the world, a forced peace. And I somehow resisted. I survived. I was immune. I was special, the last one standing. The broadcast, I reasoned, was just a warning to accept the inevitable, to give in gracefully, a command to succumb to an external agent, a forced peace that I had miraculously escaped. This twisted comfort, however, crumbled quickly under closer, sickening scrutiny, observing a figure too closely, perhaps a child mid-jump in a park, frozen in joyous suspension, frozen airborne mid-arc, a ball just slipping from their fingers, eternally falling. There was a subtle rigidity, a lack of natural give, a perfect, unyielding preservation of form. The faces were serene, devoid of struggle. But this was not peace. It was an eternal, cold stillness. This wasn't sleep. This was something else entirely, far more complex and terrifying, hinting at an unknown mechanism, a force that had stopped the world mid-breath, mid-beat. My journey continued, each tableau of frozen life adding to the crushing psychological pressure. The sleepers were not just randomly unconscious, they were arranged, almost posed, unnervingly, as if waiting. Waiting for what? I dared not even imagine, the thought too horrifying. Public buildings were accessible, doors open, yet equally populated by silent, immobile figures. A commuter still standing on a subway car, strapped in, eternally waiting for a stop that would never come. A barista mid-pour, a shopper reaching for produce, a banker at their desk, all perfectly still, the world perfectly preserved, yet utterly, horrifyingly dead. A silent, vast museum. I was an intruder in a museum of frozen time, the only moving exhibit, painfully out of place. Then a horrifying pattern began to emerge, subtle, almost imperceptible, yet undeniably present. Some sleepers appeared to have subtly shifted position when I wasn't looking directly. A head tilted, an arm dropped, a fraction of an inch, just beyond my certain memory, a trick of light, or their vacant gazes seemed to track something in the periphery, something unseen, a chilling, unsettling feeling of being watched by hundreds of unseeing eyes, intensified with every step. The pervasive silence began to feel less like an absence of sound, less like a void and more like a deliberate suppression, a thick blanket smothering any noise, any life, isolating me completely, binding me to this profound, unsettling quiet, a solitary prisoner. Every movement I made, every breath felt amplified, alien in this hushed, unyielding world. I tried to dismiss it, to rationalize the creeping unease, but the evidence was too persistent. I would walk past a figure, turn my back for a second, then quickly glance again, heart pounding. And there it was, a subtle realignment, a shift that wasn't there before, just barely visible. Their eyes, though vacant, seemed to follow, not me, but something beyond me, unseen. A horrifying thought solidified. They weren't just frozen, they were aware or their forms were. Or rather, the asterisk thing that froze them was aware, and using them as countless, silent eyes. The pervasive silence felt less like an absence, and more like a deliberate, suffocating force, a crushing weight designed to isolate me, to make me profoundly, terribly, utterly alone. And then, the ultimate, crushing realization dawned upon me, sickeningly clear, inescapable. The emergency broadcast wasn't a warning against a threat from outside, a foreign enemy. It was a command, a chilling, absolute instruction to join something vast and incomprehensible. Go to sleep. Do not resist. Those words echoed with a terrifying new, profound meaning. It wasn't about avoiding danger, but about becoming part of a collective, silent consciousness. I didn't survive by staying awake. I condemned myself to this eternal nightmare, this hell, condemned to absolute, eternal isolation, outside of whatever sleep truly entailed for everyone else. My defiance was my undoing, my conscious choice, a perpetual, unending sentence, a curse. They were not dead, they were just elsewhere, connected, and I was forever outside. Hours blurred into days, days into an unending, solitary nightmare that had no end. Utterly alone, I walked through a world of silent, unmoving statues, my only companions now. My exhaustion was deep and constant, a heavy, suffocating cloak I could never shed. The sun rose and set, painting the perfectly still scenes in different light. But nothing changed. Nothing ever moved except for me, a solitary, doomed anomaly. There was no hope of rescue, no explanation, no other living soul to witness this horror. My choice to stay awake, to resist, had become my eternal, living hell, my self-made prison. The broadcast won, in its own horrifying, inescapable way. Its victory absolute, final. A perfect, quiet apocalypse. And I was the last, desperate survivor, cursed to witness it all. Forever moving, forever watching, forever truly, utterly alone in this dead, silent world. The weight of the silence pressed, an invisible force, crushing, unyielding, permanent. My steps echoed in the vacuum, each one a desperate plea, unanswered, unheard. The empty sky above me held no comfort, only an indifferent, endless blue. I passed a park bench, occupied by figures frozen mid-conversation, eternally unheard. A child's toy dropped, spinning, then stopped, perfectly still in the unnerving calm. The sun cast long, unchanging shadows across the faces of the sleepers, judging. Each breath I took was a betrayal of the universal quiet, a defiant, lonely gasp. I am a ghost in a world of statues, unheard, unseen, eternally apart. The broadcast promised peace, but delivered a silence that screamed only despair. And in this vast, frozen museum, I am the curator of my own endless torment.